Hey guys, it's Ethan. I'm going to be doing the last day of the Daily Devo. I want to start off by saying sorry for two things that I did. The first is this is Sunday, Father's Day, and the video should have been up this last Friday. What happened was I recorded the video, internet wouldn't let me upload that video, so I finally decided just to re-record it and put a little more information into this TiVo, which I'm stoked about because I can kind of see why it didn't go up. It was just God's will, and He wanted me to mention a little bit more in this Devo. The second thing is I forgot to give you guys something to read over the week that relates to what I'm talking about. And on Monday I talked about the snake and the symbolism behind the snake, which is Satan in the Old Testament, and today we're going to be going over it in the New Testament. But I'm kind of not sorry that I didn't give you guys reading because I hope you guys are reading on your own. The whole point of these daily devos is to get you guys in the habit of doing your own quiet time. How I like to do my quiet time, it's a pretty good example. Some people like to do it in the morning, others at night. I personally like to do mine at night. And what I do is I read one chapter out of the Old Testament and two out of the New Testament. And right now I am in Nehemiah in the Old Testament, and I am in 2 Corinthians in the New Testament. And so I'm reading those. What else? Something else that I like to do is when I pray to God at night, instead of just saying it in my head, going like this, what I like to do is I like to keep it in a journal and write it down. And I do this for two reasons. The first is a year from when I wrote that day, I want to look back and say, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember when God pulled me through that, or why God, didn't give me this, or He didn't give me that, or He gave me this or that. And I want to look back and see that. The second reason is I want to, actually think about what I'm saying to God. All right? I want to actually, take 10, 15, 20 minutes, just to sit down and actually think about what I'm asking God for. Is this really like relevant to my life? Is this just like a wish list? Am I praying for others the way I should be? And so that's how I like to do my quiet time. So with that said, we're going to be talking about the snake and kind of how it's symbolized in, Satan, how he's symbolized in in the New Testament. And I'm going to be reading out of Acts chapter 28. I'm going to go off and start reading verses 1 through 3. And it says, once safely on shore, we found out that the island was called Malta. The islanders showed us unusual kindness. They built a fire and welcomed us, all because it was raining and cold. Paul gathered a pile of brushwood. As he put it in the fire, a viper driven out by the heat fastened itself on his hand. Alright, so right away, Paul, let me give you guys a little background information. What happened is Paul, he's going to Rome, and his ship wrecked on this island called Malta. He's over there. It said once they got on shore, it was still raining, and these islanders. The way it doesn't say this, but the way I like to think of these islanders is, these guys in skirts with like hay or straw or whatever, and paint and really really tan. I don't know. That's just how I like to think of it. But it says that Paul says that they're really 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 nice, and they said, yeah, come on the island, we'll help you out. Because his ship just wrecked and it's raining outside, so they say, come on, we'll build a fire. So they're building this fire, and Paul carries this wood, and out of nowhere this viper comes, and it says that it fastens itself on Paul. Now I looked up the viper, and I wanted to see if it was poisonous or not. I wanted to make sure Paul just wasn't writing this down to make himself look like a manly man, Oh yeah, I got bit by a snake and nothing happened to me. So I looked up this viper. It said it's a pretty small snake, but it says its venom is very, very poisonous. It says that within seconds it causes your body to go into shock. What shock is blood carries oxygen to different parts of the bodies, or parts in the body, and what shock does is it stops that process. So this venom stops oxygen to getting to different parts in the body. Alright, so I just wanted to make sure that Paul wasn't bragging, saying, dude, I got bit by a viper once, making himself look all cool. So let me go ahead and continue reading in verses 4 through 5. When the islanders saw the snake hanging from his hand, they said to each other, "This man must be a murderer, for though he escaped from the sea, justice has not allowed him to live." But Paul shook the snake off into the fire and suffered no ill effects. All right, so these islanders, they're probably not Christians, to be honest, and they say, "Wow, justice has caught up with him. This venom, this poisonous snake bit him, and he's not dead." And it says that he just shakes it off into the fire. One thing is, Paul was a sinner. All right, he was a murderer, and they're right about that. Before he became a Christian, his name was Saul, and he was persecuting Christians left and right. He would go into the temples and harass the priests. He'd try and make them blaspheme God, and then accuse them for that, and try and murder them or stone them. And he was around when they stoned Stephen, one of the first apostles after Jesus' death. And when people stoned Stephen, Paul said, "Yeah, come on, guys, let's go have some fun." And he held these people's coats. All right, and after that, at the beginning of Acts, it says that Jesus came down and said, "Paul, Saul, why are you doing this? And why are you killing people that live in my name?" And after that, he realized that Jesus was the truth, and he turned and he became this missionary, and it's just crazy how he did that. So these natives, relating back to what's happening on the island, these natives realized that he was a murderer, and he was, but it says that he shook this snake off into the fire, and in the Old Testament it describes the snake as the one who deceived Eve, and Adam and Eve ate of that fruit, and they fell into sin. Satan caused them to fall into sin, and it's the same thing here. All right, I just love this symbolism here. All right, it's this poisonous snake. Satan is so poisonous. He loves poisoning us with sin, kind of like this snake with its venom. And it says that Paul just shook it off into the fire, and I like it because Paul, he has Jesus in his life now. All right, after he accepted Jesus, this sin, he still sins, but it has no effect on him. All right, and it says that Paul just shook it off into the fire, and he's just like saying, "Get back, go back to your fire, go back to hell where you belong." All right, and he just shakes it off into the fire. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and read verse 6 really quick. It says, "The people expected him to swell up or suddenly fall dead. But after waiting a long time and seeing nothing unusual happen to him, they changed their minds and said he was a god." All right. So these islanders, now they think he's a god, and they're probably worshiping him, and saying, "Hell, Paul. We thought he was a murderer. He got bit by a snake, and he's still alive. Hell, Paul." And Paul probably told them, "Don't worship me. Worship Jesus. Worship God. The true God." And it doesn't say that, in verses 7 through the rest of that chapter. But the reason why I think he said that, I'm going to go ahead and read Acts verses 14, or Acts chapter 10, verses 10, sorry, Acts chapter 14, verses 10 through 15. It says, you guys are going to see why I'm going to relate this to what's happening on the island. This is when Paul and Barnabas heal a crippled man. They say, "Stand up, on your feet." At that the man jumped up and began to walk. When the crowd saw that Paul had done, they shouted in Lycaonian language, "The gods have come down to us in human form." Barnabas they called Zeus, and Paul they called Hermes, because he was the chief speaker. The priests of Zeus, whose temple was just outside the city, brought bulls and wreaths to the city gates because he and the crowd wanted to offer sacrifices to them. But when the apostles, Barnabas and Paul, heard of this, they tore their clothes and rushed to the crowd, shouting, "Men, why are you doing this? We too are only men, human like you. We are bringing you good news, telling you to turn from the worthless things to the living God." All right, so that's back when Paul and Barnabas were buddies. Now, relating back to the island, these natives, they think, "Oh, he must be a god." And Paul is just so humbled by Jesus that, he has Jesus in his life. he shakes the snake off. He's, this symbolism showing that he just, ignores Satan, loves God, and he probably told them this. He probably said, "You guys don't worship me, for real. I worship Jesus Christ. I worship the one and true God. I saw him. He spoke to me. Worship him. He's the one who's making me live. He's the one who took away that poison from, not spreading through my body, that venom from spreading through my body. He's the one who can forgive sin. You guys need to worship him." Now, it doesn't say that he said that, but if I had, to guess, I'm almost 99% sure that Paul probably told these natives that. And that's just crazy to think, you got this snake symbolizing the Old Testament, coming in 3 chapters into the Bible, throwing us into sin, and then after Jesus' death, you got this story of Paul, being alive, worshiping Christ, and he just shakes this snake off like nothing. Like, dude, you can't affect me anymore. Your poison, your venom, it has nothing. It can't affect me because I have Jesus in my life. And I just love that because after Jesus' death, even though there is snake and even though there is sin and it's venomous and poisonous, it can't affect us. And I just love that. So I hope you guys like this Devo. I'm going to end this in prayer, and I hope you guys had a good weekend and have a better week. God, I'm just so thankful, God, that you just give us these stories that, just really, really relate to our lives, God. You have this snake, this disguises Satan, God, who just messes us up in the Old Testament and causes us to fall into sin. But then you have, Paul, one who hated you, God, and who murdered Christians, God. And you spoke to him, and he flipped, God. He did total 180, and he went to the ends of the earth to preach your name, God. And out of nowhere, this snake, God, we see the snake in the Old Testament just disguises Satan, God, and we see it in the New Testament, God, in Paul's case, where it just comes out and tries to attack him, God, with his venom. And he had Jesus, he had you at the time, God, and just like that, it had no effect on his body, God. Sin has no effect on us, God, once we accept Christ. And I'm just so thankful, God, that, you sent the Holy Spirit to make me realize that and, share it in this Devo, God. And so I really hope that, God, these students who are watching this, God, can just realize that and understand and be thankful for that, God. In your name, amen.